everyone, welcome back. Josh Beatar and Alex Goldwyn for FTS MMA, and today we are very lucky to join once again by our man Sam Alvey, who is returning to the combat sports world at B2 Fighting Series, May 27th in bare knuckle at heavyweight. Our guy Sam Alvey. Sam, how are you, man?
I'm doing wonderfully. It's not bare knuckle though. It's straight up MMA. I couldn't get anyone in bare knuckle to fight me.
Oh, my bad.
No,
My apologies.
it's all right.
My apologies. For
Understandable.
some reason, I thought it was bare knuckle.
I was pushing for the bare knuckle.
I did what?
A bunch of wimps. None of them wanted to fight me.
Yeah, no, I can understand, man. I did watch your YouTube channel, so I was watching that video and I got a little bit misconstrued there. But what has life been like for you since the UFC departure? I know it's been a few months now, and I actually saw in your Instagram story a little while ago that you were doing a little bit of substitute teaching, which I thought was wonderful. I actually really love that you did some substitute teaching as well. You got your YouTube channel. I know you live on the with the farm. You got little animals everywhere. So, what has life been like for you since your UFC departure?
Yeah, so I've been subbing even while I was in the UFC. I just enjoyed doing it. So I'm doing a little more now. No, it's been good. I had gotten to spend a lot more time with my kids, and I've always been a family guy. It's scary. It really is, without knowing where my next paycheck is coming from. Leaving the UFC, I said, you know what? I got a name. People are going to want to beat me up, and it's going to be good. And then I couldn't find anyone to fight me. BKFC or a couple other bare knuckle ones. None of them offered me much, and they're kind of keeping it close to the vest. And so I said, okay, I'll start over. I'll start fighting the local scenes. I'll fight anywhere and everywhere I can, and maybe I'll get a good streak going back together and get back in the UFC or get the PFL and fight Jake Paul or Bellator. I loved fighting in Bellator years ago. Maybe I'll work my way back into one of those bigger promotions.
For sure. And as a fellow teacher, I think I can admit as well that sometimes it's a completely different battle having a room full of screaming children throwing things at each other. But look, Sam, as a fellow critic of judging in MMA, particularly someone like yourself who has been on the wrong side of judges' decisions, do you think the problem of judging in MMA is getting worse? As I feel, particularly in the last 6 months, we've seen some particularly really bad scorecards. The one that jumps to mind immediately is, of course, Paddy Pimblett, Jared Gordon. So do you think the problem's getting worse?
I don't know if it's worse or it's just the tension is finally being brought to it. And I don't even necessarily blame the judges. For every bad decision they have, they've got, 14 good decisions. You take any person and they won't judge it themselves personally perfect every time. It happens. But when you're one of those judges, your bad decision is highlighted a lot more than mine would be from the couch. So I don't know if it's getting worse, but I know it's not getting better. I would like to see some more rules added into it, some more clarifications as far as what they're trying to score. And I kind of like the way Pride used to do it. It was like at the end of the fight, whoever looked worse lost.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Sam, let's sort of focus on your next fight a little bit. Obviously, May 27th, and you are fighting at heavyweight, which is a different weight class to what you've been used to. But how have you sort of found the transition? Because I'd imagine there'd have to be a little bit of bulking up, maybe not too much, but sort of how many extra calories are you consuming, and what sort of weight do you think that you'll be heading into on fight night?
On fight night, I'm probably going to be about 225 to 235, somewhere in this. I should say just 230. Once I left the UFC, I bulked up big time. I had no intention of fighting heavyweight. I'm not big enough to fight heavyweight, UFC level anyways. But again, I couldn't get anyone to fight me. I couldn't. Yeah. I went up to 205. I even said, hey, I'll go back down to 85 if that's what you want. But I couldn't get anyone to say yes. They're all scared of Smiling Sam, I guess. I'm on a bit of a streak, which is where I left in the UFC, and not the good kind of streak. And maybe nobody wants to, be that guy that gets beat by Smiling Sam.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. But I found Cam Graham. I'm fighting for the B2 FS fighting series down in Columbus, Georgia. He stepped up. He's the guy that just likes to fight. They don't make many people like him anymore. So I said, if you're willing to fight, I'm willing to, sacrifice 40 pounds to fight you. Just like I used to. So we'll go out there. I'm going to have a hell of a time and put on a hell of a show for the guys.
Yeah, for sure. So, Sam, look, the UFC is now sort of so ingrained in, the MMA world and MMA culture that in some respects, it's very similar to a WWE, 10, 15 years ago, where it sort of really dominates the space, particularly in the sort of US market. However, I think we sometimes, forget that when the UFC first started, it was, it was somewhat of a disruptor to combat sports in general at the time. Do you think we could see any of the current larger organizations really step up and sort of disrupt the UFC's hold on the market? Or do you think at this point, the UFC is just so intertwined with MMA that it's kind of going to have a really strong hold on that market for the foreseeable future?
I think the UFC will have a strong hold on the market for maybe forever. I mean, unless something drastic happens, I don't see changing. Just people, you don't train MMA, you train UFC.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. Although the organizations that are coming up, like the PFL, Bellator just keeps getting better. Bellator made a big splash with all their tournaments, and now PFL is making a big splash because of the amount of money they're giving away or offering to the winners. Eagle FC has had a couple cards. I know One FC is making their debut here in Colorado, I think. Not too long. So there's plenty of talent, plenty of places to go. BKFC and the Russian bare knuckle boxing. There's lots of bare knuckle stuff that's growing up, and all that's driving the wages up for the UFC. I mean, for me, if bare knuckle would pay more than the UFC would, I would have been bare knuckle. As much as I love the UFC, I love being able to say I've got 25 fights with them. At the end of the day, we're all prize fighters. We're going to go where the biggest prize is.
Definitely. Sam, like you mentioned, 25 fights in the UFC, and that's sort of a question I wanted to ask you is, how do you reflect on your time in the UFC? Obviously, 25 fights is an incredible achievement. To have 25 fights in the UFC, it's, very, very, you're in a rare category of fighters that's ever had 25 fights in the UFC. So, looking past the sort of, your last few fights in the UFC and some bad judges' decisions, I believe, how do you reflect on your time in the UFC, and how do you remember your career in the UFC?
I was blessed to be in there. I mean, I was a trumpet player. I didn't know about fighting. I didn't know about anything. I stumbled into it. I took off. I thrived. I found something I'm good at, and then I developed that talent. I've been blessed to be part of the UFC for as long as it was. The people I met, the experience I've had, the fights I was able to put on for the fans of the sport have been just amazing. I have been blessed, and I hope someday I get to give back to the UFC like they gave to me. I really am a fan of what they've been able to accomplish. And I mean, they created a sport out of nothing, out of thin air. They created one of the most dominant martial arts in the world with a mixture of jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and, kickboxing. And now it is, I mean, you don't train kickboxing, you train MMA. And they've just changed life for millions of people around the world.
Definitely. So, Sam, we've heard a lot of fighters who, once they've stepped away from the UFC and are kind of, away from everything that goes with it, being in the UFC, the media, sometimes the politics, the red tape, sometimes around getting fights, they say that they feel like they've been able to just focus on getting better as a martial artist and focus on sort of developing their skill set. Have you found that since stepping away from the UFC, you've experienced anything similar where you've kind of just been able to focus on developing your skill set, or has the experience been a little bit different for you?
I think all those people are liars. It is so much easier to train when you have a fight coming up and you're going to get paid for that fight. I mean, I haven't missed a day in the gym, but I had 25 fights in the UFC. I've made some money. I've been able to live off that a little bit, hoping, that next big opportunity presents itself. So no, it is far easier to train and develop your skill set when you have that paycheck coming. I mean, and we're all, like I said, we're prize fighters. Without the prize, we can't really fight.
100%. Sam, I know you mentioned on that YouTube video you posted, shout out to the Sam Alvey YouTube channel as well. Go subscribe to that.
Please, everyone go follow it, watch it. I'm getting close. I'm trying so hard to get monetized on YouTube right now. You need the 4,000 hours. I'm not there yet, but I had a big jump in this last month. And so I'm hoping everyone watching goes and watch every one of my videos, 5 or 6 times.
Definitely. Well, I noticed the subscriber count. You've hit that mark, so it's only the hours to go, and then you'll be monetized. So you'll get there. You'll get there.
I appreciate it. It's nerve-wracking. I just want that little extra side income, and I get to give back to the community that gave to me so much, because at the end, I wouldn't have had any career if not for the fans. So I've dedicated my YouTube channel to giving back to the fans. Anything I can do, to any questions I can answer, or behind the scenes knowledge I can give, I'm trying to give it there.
That's fantastic. Well, look, I know you did mention on that YouTube video that BKFC weren't willing to pay, or the amount wasn't very high at all. Do you think that maybe an impressive performance against Cam Graham would maybe get BKFC to reconsider? Because I think they've got a great market, and I think guys like yourself would fit perfectly in a BKFC environment where there is actually titles. They've got BKFC titles, and you could definitely fight for one yourself.
It couldn't hurt. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to put a whooping on him. In all respect to him, he's a very talented man. He's been fighting for a long time, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to compete against him. But I should correct. It's BKFC didn't offer me a small contract. They didn't offer me less money than I was willing to fight. We spoke for a long time. I never got a number out of them, but they put me in the direction of fighting over in Russia. Over in Russia, they could pay a lot more. So BKFC did help me. Except the Russians keep chickening out too, the little jerks.
Yeah.
But BKFC did everything they could to put me in contact with someone that would be able to pay more.
Yeah.
So I'm very appreciative of that. I'm going to watch Mike Perry and Luke Rockhold fight, and I would love to fight the winner of that. I'd love to fight the loser of that. But I know when I fight Cam Graham, I'm going to make a statement. I'm going to have some names in my mouth for when I get that microphone, and we'll see where I end up after that.
For sure. Well, look, Sam, last one from me anyway today. We don't want to keep you too long. We really appreciate you giving us some time. But have there been any more talks with, that Russian bare knuckle company? Because as you said, they kept chickening out. Things were happening. Do you think that door's still open to work with them in the future? Or have you maybe kind of moved on from working with them, given what happened with the constant sort of back and forth with fights?
You know what? I'm still, someday maybe it'll happen. They've been, the first fight I agreed to fight with them was on 2 weeks notice, and I'd be in Russia on Christmas Day. And I said, all right, 2 weeks notice, I'm in. And then they said, maybe not. And then they said February, then they said April. I keep saying yes. So I'll just keep saying yes, because at the end of the day, I want to fight. I love fighting. And if I get a trip over to Russia or Abu Dhabi or wherever they're hosting the fights, I'll be there, because that's what I like to do. So I'm not closing the door. Hopefully they haven't closed the door on me, and hopefully I get to go over there and beat up a Russian.
For sure. Well, look, Sam, thank you so much for joining us today again, man. We really enjoyed the opportunity to speak to you again. It was definitely been far too long since we last chatted to you, so we're going to have to make this happen again sooner. But look, man, all the best in preparation and training for your fight. And, I know that Josh and I can't wait to see you back in there. And yeah, man, we'd love to talk to you after you get that W.
Hey, that sounds great. When you guys post this, put my YouTube link on the bottom if you can. Sure. That way everyone can find me. I appreciate each and every one of you for wanting to talk to me. I always say, I know that someday nobody's going to want to talk to me, but it's not today. Not today. And I appreciate that.
Well, look, Sam, you're actually our first ever interview 2 years ago. So we started with 300 followers, and you gave us a crack, and we're nearing 150 interviews. So thank you very much for that as well. I must say, thank you for that.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you, guys.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. Have a good one.
Hey, you too, guys.